Okay.
Hey!
Did it work?
Yep, it's working. Now it's live.
Oh, like it's on right now.
Yeah.
It's not accepting that.
Yeah, no, the first time we did it, we were like completely confused at how this whole thing works.
Okay.
So it goes live and then Lily shows up. It usually takes a minute and then people start coming on and doing stuff. Hey, Trev's there. Nan's first
I think I
live.
need to have glasses on.
So you can see.
No, I can't see anything.
Hey guys, good morning. Happy Saturday.
Hey.
Hey, how's everything going? Hey. See, those are all of our friends. This is my mom, Dorothy, over there hiding behind, well, kind of no choice behind Lily Kate. You need to look out because you're shaking everything. So Nan is here. She was just coming to visit. I don't think was expecting anything. And then I was like, hey, since you're coming, let's go ahead and do a YouTube live with you. So Nan got roped into this kind of unexpectedly. If you guys got to see in the winter edition of the e-magazine, she wrote an article in there entitled Why Homeschool? And she was talking about kind of her experience. She was a public school teacher, also homeschooled my brothers when they were in middle school, right?
Yeah.
You're in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it would be neat. I know a lot of us homeschooling, sometimes we have questions. Oh, say good morning to Chloe.
Morning.
I think sometimes we have questions and most of us who homeschool aren't necessarily people who have come from a background of being a teacher. So I think sometimes we can, hey, good morning. I think sometimes we can have kind of just questions and concerns. So I thought she's been a teacher for like 20 years now.
Yeah.
You've taught everything. She's taught everything from kindergarten up to adults. So I think you are a good resource, though, to have because you have done so much, you know, in the spectrum to be able to ask some of these questions. Okay,
Yeah.
you're going to have to.
Oh, sorry.
You can go sit over there. Go.
Aw,
Thank you.
come on, sit over here.
Honey, it's hard. You're really heavy.
Wait, sit over here.
Hold on. Let us get adjusted. And I did want to say, you guys, our little community that we have here with Minimalist Homeschool is so precious and does mean so much. And we have a prayer request that came to me late last night that I just wanted to reach out and have you guys all lift up in prayer. Okay, you're my prayer request, actually. I just want it. We have a sister here in the community that is just traveling abroad right now, visiting family over the holidays. And there's just a lot of very risky security type things going on, a lot of danger in the area that they're in. And so Brandon and I were up last night praying for her and the family. And so I would just like to ask all of you guys to be keeping them in your prayers today, just their safety and everything that's going on, that they will have a good time and a great time of fellowship with their family, but be safe and return home soon. So if you guys can keep them in prayers, I think that would be a good one. We've been thinking of you guys all night, and this morning I was so glad you sent me an update because I was nervous after last night.
So they're safe this morning?
They're safe this morning.
That's
Yeah,
good.
so far so good. Hanging
That's
out
a prayer.
inside, but
Yeah.
safe. So I'd like for all of us just to kind of keep them in your prayers. Yes, thank you. Brandon is here. He's just kind of hanging out so that way Mom and I can answer some questions. So I've been jotting down a handful of the questions, and a lot of them kind of all went around the same topic. One of the biggest topics, though, I think a lot of times even, ooh, that's a good one. We'll get to that. Tackle projects. I'm going to make notes while we do this. One of them that I hear so often is people who say, oh, I can't homeschool. I wasn't a good student myself, or I'm not very smart. I'm not very patient. How do I do that? So what are some things, some tips as far as homeschooling and being confident in your teaching when you feel completely inadequate?
I think you have to realize that we're all kind of in the same boat. I mean, I was a CD student. I don't remember ever, maybe because I'm older, but I never did homework.
Yeah.
No. And I mean, most teachers that I know, I think a lot of us knew as a child that we loved to play school.
Yeah.
We loved to all of our siblings or the children that my grandmother watched when she says you're in
You
charge.
just like being bossy.
I love being bossy, that's true. And I would take all these children, my grandma wanted them to be quiet, so I'd stick them in a room and I'd beat them on top of the head with a newspaper and say,
I'm
do
the
your work.
teacher,
I'm
work."
the teacher, that's right. And so we would color pages or I would, make stuff up, whatever. But being the oldest grandchild, I really feel called to do this.
Yeah.
But even if you weren't called to do it as a public teacher, you're obviously being called to do it as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And so, kind of stop and think that we're all kind of at that same field. None of us are perfect at it. No, there's every teacher that I've known or gone to school with, we always feel like it's a learning curve for us too. We are constantly learning.
Yeah.
And so my biggest advice there would be, if you don't feel confident, it's okay. There's a lot of things that are thrown at us every year and we have to learn all over. So I would say the same to you. Go out there and you can Google, you can go to Amazon, say, okay, where's a book that says, I'm not really good at teaching math. What are some things that I can
Sure.
do? There are books out there. I don't even mind researching some of those.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I met a wonderful teacher this past summer because I took over her position, and she has given me 2 great books that have really helped me teach language arts. Because
That's not your strong
that's not my strong suit. My sentences can be the longest run-on sentences in history, and I'm learning how to not do that anymore. So it's a learning process for me, and I think if whatever you're teaching your child, if you make it a learning process for yourself, you're going to become confident.
Well, and I really feel like that's where in homeschool we even kind of have the advantage because you may not be the best. Honey, you'll have to help me with some of these comments because it's hard to keep up from them when I can't see. Well, yeah, and especially
talking to Brandon.
yeah, because he's trying to
Okay.
help answer the comments because I see him for a minute, but then they go away. And then we do have families like the one who just commented, her daughter's autistic. Thank you, hon. I appreciate it. Her daughter's autistic. So obviously she has a whole different realm of things that she's trying to deal with in the homeschool spectrum. And that's where I think that as homeschool families, even if you do feel inadequate because you're not the smartest, you weren't the best student, you're not the best
was
at
bad.
whatever it may
Yeah.
be, nobody is going to know your child better than you. Nobody is going, there may be fantastic teachers in the public school system, which of course, obviously there are that really care
Right.
for their children and are
Right.
there for them,
yeah.
of course, but nobody replaces the role of a parent. So the fact that already you are going to be the most invested, the most connected, the most whatever, God gave that child to you for a reason. So you have the edge in that I think really does help kind of fill the gap in wherever you might be
think so, too.
inadequate,
Yeah.
book smart wise, you know?
Yeah, because it's really not about being book smart. It's really about learning is not about book smart. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Learning is really about a child recognizing how to process information. And it can be information from a game or information from a book that you're just reading for fun. But you're right, a parent, that's why I homeschooled Larkin and Allen, because I really understood what they needed.
Yeah.
And so
Where the public school system was really failing them at
Right.
what they needed.
yeah.
You
Well, they
were
were
as their
wild.
parent.
Nobody can keep up with 2 wild children in their room. They were wild, let me tell you.
Very
But-
wild.
But when they took away all the social aspects, which I'm sure is the reason why a lot of parents want their children to be homeschooled, it gave them the opportunity to just stop and focus on what they needed to do. And I love homeschooling. I mean, I'm a teacher and I love being in public school. And every child that walks through my door, they become my child. And I'll love forever.
Yeah.
I just do. And it doesn't matter if they're in my classroom or in the kindergarten room. I saw some this past week when I was gone. I'm trying to figure out how they knew who I was. But I love them to death. And a lot of teachers feel that way. We become very invested in your children.
Yeah.
But when it came time for mine to be homeschooled, it was because I knew that they were not able to get that. I have 60 some students a year, and I can't always get to every single one at
It's too
exactly
many.
what
Yeah,
they need. I
it's
can
too
do
many.
what I can when they're with me, but when they're homeschooled, 2 things. One, we know what our children like, what they don't like. We also know what they need because we can see what they're lacking. You
Yeah.
don't have to have a degree to see that.
Yeah.
The other part is that when I was homeschooling, I know I got really stressed out because I was teaching all day and then homeschooling at night. And I wanted to push them. And the part I love about homeschooling is, and truly is, you get to back away and you get to do the things that your children love so that they get a love of learning back. To
Yeah.
me, that's the epic part of being a homeschool parent.
I think fostering, and we say this a lot on our website with our minimalist homeschool stuff, is my goal is to foster a love of learning in my children. And I think if we focus on that, especially in the times we live in now where information is so accessible. I mean, you can get online and learn anything, and so if I foster a love of learning in my children, maybe they're not great at their multiplication facts right now.
But that's
maybe
okay.
they couldn't tell you how to break down a plant cell.
But
Maybe
that's okay.
whatever. But if they have this love of learning in them, they'll be able to do whatever. And God always provides. And so maybe, some people talk about it is difficult. And I think not being patient is one of the things I hear so often. Oh, I could never homeschool my kids. I don't have the patience. Guys, my mom's here and my husband's on the comments. I am probably the least patient person on earth. And it's because I got it from her.
Yeah.
Because she is the least patient
I have no time for that.
And so
That's true.
that is definitely something where I am not the best at, but God. The only way that I think I have improved in that area. Maybe my mother and my husband sitting here.
I haven't seen you teach, so maybe I need to come watch
But
you teach.
I feel like I'm much more patient than
Yeah.
I used to be. I'm not always great at it. I think patience is a big one. And I think that's just our sinful human nature and honesty. So in any of these things that you feel like you're lacking or you're falling behind or whatever, bless you. Bless you. Bless you.
Love you too.
God helps so much. He will provide
Yes.
when it comes to curriculum, resources, patience, understanding.
Can I go back to the patients that
Yeah.
you just mentioned? Something you said earlier when we were talking before this. And I know I wish I could do this as a public school teacher because I don't get to stop when I do to a point, but I don't really get to stop and back off like you can as a home. If you were feeling impatient at any time with your child, 99.9% of the time it's you and not the child. And I say that's when you stop
Yeah.
and you take a break. It might be for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It might be till the next day. And there's times we do that in the classroom too.
Sure.
There's times when we'll be doing something and you're thinking the kids are driving you nuts and it's really
Nobody's understanding anything I'm
Nobody
saying. What is wrong with
I
them?
just spent 2 weeks trying to teach you how to make a claim on your paper, so you can write this essay, and they still don't get it. Well, then it might just be that day.
Yeah.
It might just be a
Yeah.
few students. But when you're at home, when you're feeling impatient, that's when you stop and you take a break and you figure out what works best for you and your child. I would say take a break and go do something fun. If it
Yeah.
means going outside, playing a game, or just having some downtime, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That is like, to me, if I keep telling her all the time, I wish we could start a homeschool for like a school for homeschoolers. My
Start a
grandson
homeschool school.
says, well, that's a school. I said, I know, but if you take away all the regulations and testing and all that away, and we could just say, work with the students and say, wow, you're not getting it. Okay, let's stop here. I really wish I could go outside and just play a game of tag or play some volleyball or let the kids just, run or breathe,
Yeah.
I wish we could do that. And as a homeschool parent, I know you've done that. When Travis when we were really struggling with dyslexia and things like that, sometimes he could just go away and come back, refresh, and then you're ready. And sometimes you have to look at, well, maybe I'm just not getting it across. And that's the part where, like you were saying, that we might not feel like we're adequate as a teacher. Well, teachers feel that way even if we have a degree because every child needs something different. And it's not always the same thing. They each need different things.
Yeah.
One child might be very visual learning in one way, but really needs some auditory another way, and then you have to combine all that together, and then other days they don't need any of that. So,
The
you're
same
like, what
child
do you
could
mean?
change with the day. And
They
I
can,
think we
how
as
they
a
feel.
we as a whole look at taking breaks in general, I think, in just a very negative light. And especially,
Oh,
in this homeschool community, we're comparing ourselves with others, right? So you see people on social media and they have this perfect, beautiful school all the time and everything goes great and perfect and all of this. And so you're like, well, that's not what my school looked like. And that was the whole reason why we started doing anything on video, to
Yeah.
show like, yeah, some days I'm like, okay, everything's a disaster, so quit. Like, we're not doing anything.
right.
Because some days I think we have to just find it is okay to say, I need to step back and take a break. And this is what Brandon brings up so often. Hey, when you're reading through the Gospels, you see where so often Jesus is saying, I need a minute to step away. And he
That's
goes to
true.
spend time in prayer, in just one-on-one connectiveness with God of just, help me here, instruct me, guide me. I just need a minute with you. And so if that's the example we are to follow, and even Jesus would say, I'm going to go off by myself and take a moment to do this. We can do that too. But I think we feel so guilty when we are off schedule, when we are not doing what the other homeschool moms are doing, when we're not, this is my plan that I put together. And I mean, this past week for us, in complete honesty, we had all of these scheduled plans, right, that we're supposed to do and all of this. And I had shared with you guys how we're going through our house and getting rid of all of our stuff. And so I have destroyed our whole house. There is stuff everywhere. Even when you came here, you're like, what's going on in there?
It's
Like,
full
oh,
of
it's
stuff.
just me destroying the
Well,
house. No big deal.
And you had a flood.
Yes, this will be
Again.
available you can view it later. Yep, you totally can get on. This will stay up. And yeah, our house flooded last week. The basement was in water. The whole thing was a mess. But hold on, there we go. And so this week we did not keep to schedule at all because I was overwhelmed with our house being a disaster and everything being a mess, that for me, that's one of my triggers. I know that when everything's a mess and everything's out of order, I am not being as patient, as kind, as loving, as soft-spoken, as nurturing. Like, I know I'm not doing those things, and I become psycho mom when, I wonder where I get it from. I become psycho mom when those things happen. And so this week I was like, you know what? Travis is older. He can do a lot of his stuff independently. So I was like, buddy, you know what to do. You go and work on that. Lily, I let her, if there's something she wanted to do, she could work on it. If not, no big deal. Like, I just kind of threw my hands up with all of it and was like, if you get some schoolwork done, you get some schoolwork done. If you don't, you don't. I don't care, because we're going to work on these other things, because otherwise I know I'm not going to be what I should be and what you deserve for me to be. So we're just going to let it go.
Yeah.
So the whole plan will be a disaster, but oh well. And guess what? We're going to wake up tomorrow and we're going to do the same thing, and it's not that big deal. So I think that was one. Another question I want to bring up here: how do you inspire students or still motivate them regardless of them being inspired? Do you think we truly can inspire our students? Like, is that something, you think we can really? I think we can.
I think we can. It really goes back to, they have to love the learning process. They have to enjoy it. I think my biggest thing is, when the very first year I taught at a Christian school, and my favorite thing is reading. I love to read. And when my students came to me in 4th grade and they were bemoaning the fact that they would have to read anything, whether it was a chapter book, a
Picture
magazine,
book.
or a picture book, yeah. And they were all
The back of the book.
Yeah. Oh, there's words on the back of the book. They didn't know that, but they really just, they just were over the reading. They didn't enjoy it, and I thought, how can you not enjoy it? So I learned from the very start, my very first days, that my students were going to love to read. Let me tell you, that was a long time ago.
That was.
Most of them, and they know me, they have children now of their own. But what I've heard over and over through the years is how much their children walked away from our classroom that year, that fourth grade, to love reading. Ooh, be careful. I would let my students lay on the floor. I even had a little couch that they could sit on, bean bags. When we did any kind of reading, I let them spread out and just read, because you know what? It's more important to me that they love to read, and that was what I taught them. And that's what I spent the whole year teaching them. And it didn't even take me the whole year. Once they realized that reading could be fun and enjoyable, that motivates them to, or maybe I should say inspire them. I don't think you're really, I don't know about motivating, because good luck on that one. If you find the answer, let me know. I use, like Skittles in the classroom.
Mhm.
But they have to enjoy it. And I'm sorry, if we're making them do something over and over again and they're not enjoying it, they're not learning. And so I'm so in awe of all the families that do get to do homeschooling, because you really you can do this tenfold than I can ever do in a classroom, because you really can step back that day and say, okay, we're going to build a fort over our kitchen table and we're all getting underneath it. Remember, we used to lay on the big pillows, and I would read to them. There is nothing wrong with the parent doing the reading and the children either just listening or following along in their own book. I've said that from day one, that when you're in there with them and you're enjoying it, whether you're piled on the couch, your bedroom bed, or underneath the table, or outside on a swing, or a blanket outside, whatever you're doing, if they can find that they can enjoy it, that's going to be your biggest motivation and inspiration for your children.
Is to find a way that they enjoy it.
Yeah, because look at what in the end do you want your children to be able to do when you're done with homeschooling? When it's over, what is it you really want them to be able to actually academically do?
I want them to be able to know and to solve and to go do whatever they want to go do. Right? But you have to be able to read. And that's where we tell Travis, our only core things are, you have to be able to read. You have to have at least your basic writing skills and basic arithmetic, the things that you truly need to get by in life. And and if you have a love of learning, you can learn anything.
Right.
So I know there's a lot of things that, I've told before, when we actually had a meeting with these curriculum publishers, and they were asking me questions. And I said, to be honest, I don't school my kids with college in mind. I'm not teaching my children for college or for whatever. I'm teaching my children to love learning. Mm-hmm. And if you can read, you can do anything.
You can.
So maybe now Travis won't be, taking calculus. Maybe down the road, he'll want to do something that requires him to know that, and he'll be able to do it. But that's why we do like the writer's tea time. Even Travis being older, I read a book to them every evening. Travis does some independent reading, which he struggled with dyslexia. So we've always let him, he's allowed to pull up the audio book, because if he can hear it with him, I make him follow along in the book, but if he's listening to the audio book, he has an easier time following along, because he's not getting stressed out and tripped up on the words. I don't make him do a lot of reading aloud, because that's a lot for him to try to keep his words. He can say the words, but then he's not retaining the information. So what are we doing? We're just wasting our time. Whereas Lily is great with that, so she can do read alouds. That just knowing the difference in our kids. But I still read to them. We have different books we read as a family in the evening, and Daddy reads Bible to them in the morning, and stuff like that. And so I think, that makes such a big difference. If you can find. You can't inspire them if you're forcing them to do stuff they hate. You know what I mean?
Or they don't even know they would like it. That was like when they told me they didn't like to read, and I thought, how can you not like to read?
If you don't like to read, it's because you've never read a good book.
That's it, exactly.
And we had to do that with Travis. Text messages with Travis with the dyslexia, anything to do with reading or writing, he avoids like the plague. He wants nothing to do with it.
And you should stick to audio.
Yeah, so we let them do audio stuff, and then things like we let them get, they have our old phones or tablets, and so we've given them Messenger so they can message us and family members. So if I were to say, Travis, go sit down and write me all of this, he'd be like, oh, this is horrible. But if he's on texting with you or texting with whatever, I mean, and I'll put Brandon out here. My husband, Brandon, is also dyslexic, but he was never diagnosed. So he always struggled throughout school, especially when it came to writing.
Yeah.
And so he was not a great speller. He was not a great writer. He didn't have any of that. But with computers, typing in, you know, how it underlines it and read with it wrong, he learned how to spell
Yeah.
from that. And I've seen that with Travis, just him trying to text people and trying to say messages. Like, he might have been doing really bad with it at first, but just seeing that like autocorrect popping on and telling him how to do it has really helped him. So now when he is doing something on paper that he's writing down, he's like, I know what that looks like. You know, I've gotten it down because I've seen it autocorrect itself for so long. So I think we like try to stay away from technology in a lot of ways, which to its point in some stuff, but it can also be a help, and you can use that. And again, the kids, they'll happily get on and text message their cousins and their aunts and their uncle, you know, whatever they'll do it. They'll happily do that all day long. And so they're learning and they don't even realize it, you know, and that's why we keep like subtitles on when we're watching TV.
Yeah.
One, because our kids are really loud. So a lot of times we can't hear the TV. So we need the subtitles. But then when subtitles on, you're reading without even realizing it, and then they're seeing all of this stuff, and these words are going into their head. Like even Virginia, who's only 5, she'll look at words and be like, oh, that says da da da, you know, whatever. Just because she's seen the letter so many times, she's already putting that stuff together without even realizing it.
That's true.
And finding something, I know we've recommended the Action Bible 1,000 times.
That's like an amazing Bible.
Travis wouldn't want to read anything. Reading was where I struggled to try to get him into it. And so I found the Action Bible, which is the entire Bible, but in comic book form, because he loved comic books. He loved stuff like that. But I'm like, reading about Spider-Man all day and little blurbs, you know, doesn't count as reading. You need to do, you know, something more. And so finding that, I mean, that kid knows his Bible stories like the back of his hand. I mean, he has them, but having the picture to you just have to find that thing that clicks, I think, with them, and then the inspiration's there. And even sometimes I know there are times when what we want them to do for school, they could give a hoot less about. And so that's where, you know, my husband and I have always kind of agreed that the only thing that is a must every day is Bible. Every day, 7 days a week, we read scripture together across the board. Our core focus items are that they can read, they can write, and they have basic arithmetic skills.
Yeah.
Everything other than that is completely elective, in our opinion.
Right.
And so Bible is a must, that gets done. Then my next priority is to try to get them motivated enough to do at least the core requirement things, which we said, hey, we all have to agree that these are the core things that we are going to work on. Some days after that, they've been whining and groaning the whole time just to get those core things done. And I'm like, whatever, you just, a few minutes, it doesn't take long. You know, there are some core things we need to try to get through. And then everything after that, if they're not motivated and into it, like we said earlier, we just say, okay, let's go play outside. Let's go do something else. And then we can look for something else or adjust or do something to try to find that thing that's going to fit, that's going to click, you know, and see that stuff kind of come together. So, and I think that kind of leads into this next one. How do you motivate a smart but negative kid?
I would say he's really bored.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very bored. You need to find out, when we have children, we want to challenge them, we've got to figure out what is it that they really enjoy. What is like their most favorite thing. I have one student right now who he walks from class to class with a book in his nose. He goes outside to for recess, and he would rather, we'll find him sitting out with other students who have to sit out, and he's just sitting out because he wants to read, and he wants to sit there in that special spot.
Like take the detention spot so he can read in peace.
That's what he loves, but he also loves debating. So he goes to like a special class.
Are you sure this isn't Brandon's child?
Well,
Brandon, do you have a child in Tennessee?
We didn't know about. But he is bored the rest of the time. Like he can do everything, and he's just done in no time at all. So what I've done with him is I've challenged him, and I work him with another student who is not quite maybe at his level, but close to it. So they can have deeper discussions because that's what he really likes. He likes to go deeper. He likes to argue really. But this other gentleman is very mellow. So they never have arguments, but they can really have great discussions. And you know what? He's actually been paying closer attention when we're doing, a whole group instruction and things like that.
Yeah.
Again, I had to find what he enjoyed, and I had to make sure that when I gave him a challenge, it was something that he would still succeed in and not be like, you don't want to challenge your student or your child in a way that they're going to struggle, but you don't want to make it too easy on them. So it's really about finding what they enjoy and then giving them a step up to whatever it is you're doing. Say you've got a child, and I'm trying to think, like math, and they already know the multiplication, they know the division. Go find some fun ways to do like puzzles that are all math, and they have to actually think through the process to answer or solve these puzzles. There's so many out there that are so cool, and I of course can't think of what they're called right at the moment.
Off the top of your head,
Yeah, but you can always Google mathematical puzzles and then the grade level or the age level where your child's at. That's a good way. And what happens is when you motivate them and you find things that they enjoy, then they enjoy the other learning too. Because again, we're fostering that learning is fun. Fun, it can be fun. People say, oh, it shouldn't be fun. No, it should be fun. Because I don't know about you. If I have to go to work 8 hours a day, and of course I'm a teacher, I love what I do. But say I had to go to a factory every day and do the same thing every day, that's no fun.
You're poking yourself in the eyeball, bored to death.
Exactly. I wouldn't last. Well, but when you go and you enjoy it, it doesn't mean that they have to be laughing and giggling. Fun and enjoyment means that you're kind of creating this inner love for learning. I don't know how else to say
Well, but
it.
think about it. I don't know why we separate so much from our children to ourselves as adults. If it's
We're
something you
thinking-
care about, you will happily learn it and do whatever it
Exactly.
takes. If you don't care, then you don't care. And I will kind of state this point too. You guys are asking, you live in states where certain subjects are required because every state's a
Oh,
different
really?
level of things that you have to do. And Travis is that way about social studies and history. When
I can't see you.
Travis wants everybody to want you on our live streams more often.
I love you too, Travis.
Travis could care less about history. I'm constantly trying to push him into these things. For the most part, he doesn't care. But with him, if it comes to, he's like, well, I'll just read the Bible. If I have to do history, I'll read the Bible. Which the Bible is historical, that complete.
Works.
And so I try to find resources, documentaries, other books, things like that have a biblical base of a historical happening, but that show the evidence that we have found for that being a true historical. I mean, we believe it because it's in the Bible, but going and showing him look at the stuff archaeologists have found, or this or that, or other texts from other places that show the same thing, the same story, what happened here, so we can see that this is a true historical happening. And so my way to, because he doesn't want to sit down and do like regular history stuff, if I have it based around a biblical story that we know or reading or whatever, and I can pull in other things into that, that's how we do history a lot. And the same way even with current events, with current events, sorry, I'm trying to read as we do this. It's a hard time to the outside world. Okay.
I can't
I
see
know
you.
it's hard to, and it only comes up for a minute and then it goes away.
Oh, okay.
With current events, my husband's great at this. He has a great sense for being able to see stuff in the world today, and everything's part of a prophetic picture. Everything connects in some way. And so being able to we watch like Pastor JD Farag, he does updates every Sunday, prophecy updates, but it's a great way for you to see things happening in the world stage now, and then to be able to look in scripture and say, whoa, look at, see where these things are connecting in different ways. And so history for us might not look like traditional history. you know, because our kids don't know when Civil War battles were this or that, you know, or whatever. You know, they're not.
Right.
I memorized those. I was an A student. I don't remember them, so you know how much that
Yeah.
shows you. But being able to take things that are going on and see, you know, prophetically how things are still tying in and, you know, playing a part in this picture here. And then also looking back at historical things that happened and seeing the different stuff for that. So that's where we, I think it's not that you're trying to get around your state's requirements, but I think a lot of times when it's like, you must do science, you must do history, you must do these different things, we think of them in like the traditional sense of how they're being taught. And, you know, like, well, public school, there's a book and you read through this and these are the facts, this year's American history, next year's world history, you know, whatever.
Right.
Hey, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we kind of think in those terms that that's how we need to do it. And I think we can kind of tweak and adjust a little bit. Because again, you have to find something. If you're just sitting them down and have to read through these facts that they could care less about, you're just why torture yourselves.
Well, it makes me wonder if other states like mandate what kind of standards you have. Like say each year you have to. That's what they're called, standards, where they have to learn A through Z, and it's at third grade level or whatever, and everything has to be like checked off. If that is something that your state requires, you could always ask me maybe more in detail and I could help you. But I would say this, beyond reading, writing, and math, and they do need their basic math, and they need to write every day, even for little guys and all the way through high school and adults.
Yeah.
And read social studies, science, or whether it's going to a museum, it's finding somebody in your community that something old. Like right now we're doing one, of course I can't remember what standard it is, but it has a little bit of science in there. And anyway, they're doing baking. So we've invited a couple of chefs that have come periodically to an after school program that we're doing. And they're taking them in all the way from kindergarten through sixth grade, and they're doing not all at the same time, but they're taking them in groups, and they're actually showing them and letting them, you know, kind of go through the process of watching something start. You know, they let them taste it, they let them smell it, they let them see it, touch it, and then they take it, you know, a cake. Just think about the different things that go into a cake if you had to actually by themselves.
You could break it.
And then you talk about
there's all those
changes.
like memes and jokes about, you know, like homeschool memes that are like, oh, mom's making us help with laundry today, and it's like, oh, and they have like all these things of like school subjects that you're checking off by doing laundry, you know.
Why didn't I do laundry? Hey boys, I'm just kidding.
Well, and I think that's where, like, for at minimalisthomeschool.com, I have every day our core things that we do, but the elective things, science, social studies, art, you know, all those things, I just do one per day. So every day we don't do history stuff. Every day we don't do science stuff. But once a week we go on a nature hike. We go out and we do this. We look up videos that do it. You know, we watch things that are historical, and you know what I mean? So I know if I was trying to do that every single day, I'd be a complete failure. And my kids would hate it and our home would be miserable if I tried to do that every single day.
That's why teachers complain. Because if I had to teach science, your children would blow up.
This, you know what I mean? Like we can change that a little bit, and I feel like it works a lot better for us. Where if I had a kid that was super into history and loved learning about World War I or whatever, we do it all the time. You know, different. But I don't, so we don't do that.
I don't know. Wait till it gets a little
wall and just does not seem to learn something. Like you've got time or money or some skill that you're trying to do.
Happen a lot in school and at home, but I would say we need to really go back to the teacher. When my students are not actually progressing and they get to a point and they can't get any further, then I have to stop. One, I have to stop pushing. I find moving, I step back, I give them stuff that I know they can do. And then I look at why they weren't able to figure it out. Why couldn't they do, okay, well, this is crazy. Why can they add and subtract, but they can't multiply? Oh, that's when they're really young. Well, first of all, okay, great, I sound like a bad teacher. they don't have a good number sense. What's number sense? Which means they don't understand that you can have a group of 3 teddy bear grams, another group of 3 teddy bear grams, and another group of 3 teddy bear grams. They don't understand that that makes 9. They don't even understand. They don't understand that because they can't see it and they can't process that information.
Something's missing in the
So
steps,
so somewhere along the line, they've not had enough practice at it, or they've missed it because in school, unfortunately, it's like, well, you get it or not. Sorry, we're going
We're
on.
moving on, yeah.
And
we don't have
that's-
time.
Because they say, you know, at 70%, once your students, 70% of them have it, you've got to go on. Well, what happened to that other,
30%
30%.
left behind. Sorry, guys.
So when I taught 4th grade, I really had to even step back and do a lot of number sense. They just didn't get it. And once they did, then they go, oh, if I have 3 groups out of 3, oh, I've actually got 9.
Because 3 times 3 is 9. Look at that.
Then you can go and say, well, 3 times this times that. Oh, something. That's why you have a community of homeschool parents or, teachers. There's so many blogs out there that you could write to and say, hey, my child can't seem to get this. They're really struggling. What can I do? And they're going to be more than willing to say, hey, try this or try that or go read this blog or something. And teacher blogs are all out there. Trust me, I can't keep up with 3. I try to read, once a month. That email me every day. But I do learn great stuff. And again, as a teacher, whether you're a teacher or a mom teacher, you're still a teacher. We're all teachers. And it's just about learning. And we have to learn what works best for our child. And then we have to figure out when they do get to a part and we can't figure it out, you got to ask for help. You got to say, I just do not get this. And again, when they come to that wall, we've got to realize first and foremost, let's look at what we're doing. Give the child a break. Let them go do something else. And then try and work it out. Skip it for a while. Go back to what they know until you can help them. It doesn't hurt them
another
at
thing
all.
is sometimes we don't want to just give up on the hard thing and go back to the easy stuff for whatever reason.
You got to work to come back.
But then you
to
realize that we have, I'm horrible at this, where I really damage their, I really
I remember math. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
I really
try,
damage their little spirits because I'm like, we have to
Mm-hmm.
keep going. We have to keep doing this. And I think I set an expectation that if we just go back to simple, they're dumb. They didn't get it. Something was wrong with them that they didn't get it. And I've hurt my kids because of that, where that was completely wrong of me in many forms, but it's okay to say, let's go back to what we did get, because I don't want you to lose your assurity in yourself of what you're learning.
Right.
So it's okay to go back to simple and really hone that in, because some piece is missing somewhere that's not allowing you to go up to the next step and get it. But we're the same way. So if I'm baking this thing or whatever, and I'm trying to make this really nice lavish dinner for our family, and I screw the whole thing. Well, what did I miss? I totally got that wrong. So I'm going to go back to the basics. Yeah, that's you. I'm going to go back to the basic stuff and figure it out until I get to that next point. So I think it's okay, when we have to show ourselves and our children, it's okay to get to a point and be like, I'm not getting this. Like, something is not clicking. Okay. Let's go back to what was clicking, spend some more time there. That's okay.
Oh, yeah.
And then once we really get a good basis there, we can try again.
Right. And in the meantime, you're searching, because that's what teachers do. That's what we do, is we try and figure out, okay, what can I help them? And maybe it might be, okay, and I know we talked about this when we were really going through with Travis and just realizing, we didn't even know for sure that he had dyslexia, but he was really hitting the wall and he's super smart. So we were like, what is going on? And okay, a couple things you realized is, one is that before we even realized that, is that, hey, Dad's way better at teaching math than I am. So sometimes you gotta let somebody else do the teaching. Another thing is to recognize when we teach, and teacher, mom, dad, doesn't matter, we teach how we learn. For me, I'm very visual and hands-on. Heidi, on the other hand, can just read something and go, okay, and go on. I can't do that. I have to have somebody show me and explain it, and then I have to work it out. I got to explain it again. I'm surprised, and that's why I didn't do well in school. But Heidi just flew through. It's why the boys had issues too. Same thing. They didn't. We do tend to teach how we learn. And there's so many different avenues. There's books out there, some really great books that will help you even kind of do some things with your child to understand how they learn best. But how they learn to read and write might be one way, but how they learn to do math might be another way.
And that's where
And that's
having,
important.
you know, calling dad in or a grandparent or anybody other than you sometimes. Like
yeah.
Travis learns, and I think it's the dyslexia thing, him and his dad, their minds work a lot alike.
Right.
When Brandon does math type stuff with him, as they're doing it, I'm like, there's no way you're going to come to the right answer. That makes no sense. Why are you telling him to do it that way? But then they just and it comes out and it's right. I'm like, how did you guys get that? Like, to me, the way that Brandon's brain works with numbers makes no sense. I'm like, I don't
But he's spot
understand that.
on.
But he
Right.
is spot on.
Right.
I mean, he can, the math stuff that he just spits out of his head. And I took calculus. I was the smart math person. You know what I mean?
You
Like, I
are the
did
smart
that stuff.
person.
I don't remember most
Yeah.
of it anymore, but I did
Right.
it and I enjoyed it. But the way I see him do it, I'm like, that's not right. That's not how you do that. But he teaches it to Travis, and Travis is like, do. Me trying to teach it to Travis, it's a disaster.
It was not good.
No, not good.
Not good.
Nothing's
But-
going well. But then dad steps in and is like, here, buddy, do whatever. And Travis like, oh, well, that's easy. Why didn't you just say that from the
That's
beginning?
because
You
it
know.
makes sense, and then finding what helps them see the sense in what they're learning.
Meanwhile, I'm still sitting over here shaking my head going, that's not how you do that. Well, apparently it is because it
There's
works.
lots of ways. There's not, don't let anybody tell you there's just one way. There's lots of ways for everything that you do.
And sometimes, and that's what's so nice. I mean, looking at, YouTube and stuff like that, even now,
Mhm.
there's so many things where you
Oh,
can
there
get
is.
on and have, maybe you don't have dad in the house. Maybe you don't have, something like that to come in and help you, teach it somewhere. Get online and see if there's someone else that's teaching that subject that maybe
that's
makes
really
more
true.
sense
You know,
to your kids.
and we all do. All the teachers do that. We all have smart boards, so we can pull up YouTube videos and we research them and say, okay, we either have heard about a teacher or a group that has made some great ones, and then we share them.
Yeah.
And we use them a lot. I know I have one teacher when I was starting to teach sixth grade, and I said, well, what do you do? Because I've never taught sixth grade, and let alone I have to teach some language arts. Are you kidding? I can't even write a full sentence without it being so bad. So anyway, she said, actually, whenever we're learning things, she goes, I go to YouTube, I Google it, and then
Have a
I
good
find
day,
a
hon. We'll
video.
see you guys later. You take care.
Okay, sorry.
No.
Oh.
Some people are leaving. I was just saying bye.
Oh, okay. So,
That's the fun
But
part of the
YouTube.
internet. You can get back on and watch it.
oh, okay.
Okay, so the other thing that I think is a good one, if you have a really intelligent teenager who just won't put in the effort or is being lazy, I think that's a common one we see a lot. Well, my kids, even if it's not a teenager, my kid's just being lazy. My kid just won't put in the work that's needed. I kind of shared about this in the autumn edition of the magazine, what to do when your kid doesn't want to do it. And I think teenagers and little ones even.
Mhm.
I think if you feel like your kid is being lazy or just won't put in the effort, I feel like that's really misguided. I don't think your kid's being lazy, and I don't think it's that your kid just doesn't want to put in the effort. I think there's an underlying problem there. Either your kid is very intelligent, but they're bored out of their mind, or they don't see what the point is. And this is where maybe I'm just a bad person to be talking about this, because
Yeah.
when we were in school and we were learning these things, and you'd be like, why do I have to learn this? I'm never going to use this. And they're
Exactly.
like, yes, you will. You will use it. Well, guess what? I haven't. And I would call myself I'm doing a halfway decent job at this whole life thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm, so it's like, no, I didn't need that. I didn't need to memorize that. I didn't need to do that. It literally served me no purpose in my life.
I hate to say it, but I really think that by the time a child's in junior high and they're being homeschooled, the stuff that's out there, they may need it if they go on to college just to have some basis but not the majority of it. I think that they should be working on life skills.
Yeah.
And they should be still writing and still reading and working
Sure.
on their math. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Core stuff.
The core stuff. But they need to be working on life skill things, and they need to be out in the community doing some kind of something.
Bless you.
I mean, I don't know how old you have to be for some of those things, but there's things in the communities like Habitat for Humanity,
Yep.
or some way for them to be giving of their
Animal
time.
shelters, some
Animal
to be
shelters,
serving.
yes.
Yeah, I think that is
I
so.
think there's the
Mhm.
hearts. I think so, serving in some way, and you know why?
Mhm.
Because if they can't find a link to why life's important or why they should even do what they're doing, if they have no purpose, then we have to help them find a purpose. And that's our job as a parent, you know. And I'll say watching my boys for, I won't say why, but they had to go do some community service, just, you know, and they ended up loving it.
Mhm.
You know, working in shelters, you know, whatever it is. And sometimes it's a pain for the parent. I was a single parent and I worked all the time. I usually had 2 jobs because, you know, teaching is wonderful, but it doesn't always pay all the bills. And so, I mean, so I was crazy. And sometimes I had to enlist other people, or sometimes I'd have to wait hours for them to get done, whatever it was. Or I always made a way, because knowing that they enjoyed it and that they were getting something, and they were not getting, they were really giving something. And that actually motivated them to do what they needed to do.
Mhm.
And I had not really thought about that till you asked that question, because I was thinking, oh Lord, teenagers, I don't know. I can barely get 6th graders to sit in a seat. So
And I really don't think you ever can be too young for community service.
No, I think that's true.
Unfortunately, most of the programs that are out there have a lot of regulations and things on them. But I mean, we're told.
Well, you can come up with your own, you know.
But yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like,
Yeah.
we're told scripturally
Mhm.
that, and here, I could care less how my children fare in a world sense.
Right.
If I am not giving my children the spiritual foundation they need to make it through this life, then I'm not doing anything.
Right.
So my kid can be the smartest kid on earth, but if they're going to hell, then I was a worthless parent. That's the honest truth of it. So we are called to live our lives as unworthy servants. So if I cannot, I think community service starts at home. And that's what we've been working on specifically with our younger girls and attitudes lately. But if you cannot serve your brother, your sister, your mother, your people in your home, and foster a servant's heart here, that's where it really starts. It needs to be here just as much as going out. And I think the more that we keep our kids, yes, homeschool, and part of this is a sense of the book part of it, right? Some reading, writing, math, you know, the stuff that you have to get done. But so that's part of it. But I think the rest of our homeschool responsibility is including our children in life skills. The fact that #adulting is even a thing is a sign that we have failed the children of the world.
Yeah.
Your children should be involved with you as far as cooking, cleaning, taking care of the house. We got the chickens, and the kids get involved in doing stuff with the chickens, which if you want to fix some things around your house, go get some chickens, because all of us are out there with the chickens doing everything, and it's not even work because we just love the chickens. But I understand not everybody can just go get 20 chickens and hang out outside all day with them. Apparently, that's what people keep telling me. I'm like, just go get chickens. It'll fix everything.
It'll lead to goats, and
It'll lead
ducks,
to all the
and
things.
turkeys. And
Braden's like, oh my gosh, stop.
horse.
But get them involved in, I feel like community service is so much more than just going and helping at, you know, this organization for so many hours per week.
Right.
That can be great. I'm not, you know, saying it can't, but
Actually,
we have to
start, but
realize
it's gotta
that
be
we are
deeper.
always
Yeah.
serving and looking for ways to serve. And so fostering that in our children, so that when we go to the grocery store and you see a little old lady trying to grab something, that your kids are the first ones to jump in and, here, ma'am, let me help you. Let me do this. You know, where can we serve? Where can we do things? Even my mother-in-law, Brandon's mom, she's now at the assisted living. And so when we go up there, I load up the kids, and just going in, you go into an assisted living with a baby and little kids, and it's like, they like blocked you. So our kids just smiling and talking and laughing. And that's what I think is so great. You know, people always ask when you're homeschooling, well, what about socialization? And it's like, oh, for the love. So you're telling me that kids sitting in a classroom with only, see, there's regulations about chickens. I know, people, it's ridiculous.
So sorry.
I'm so sorry. But you're telling me that kids sitting in a classroom with only kids their same age, that's what truly socializes a kid? That's ridiculous. You know, you look at when you homeschool, kids get an opportunity to be, I would say that my kids truly are one another's best friends.
Right,
They really
right.
are. And my
Mhm.
kids will interact with adults just as much as they will kids their age, older than them, younger than them,
Mhm.
strangers. I mean, it just,
They don't know.
they don't know. But getting them just to see how they can serve, and especially older kids, that's Travis. He's getting so frustrated. He's like, I need to find my purpose. And I go, oh, son, nobody knows their purpose at 14. Nobody knows their purpose
Well,
at 34.
But if somebody's gonna know, it might be Travis.
Yeah,
He's
but
pretty.
getting them to
different,
realize
yeah.
that, yes, there's the core stuff, and that's part of your homeschool, but I would say the rest of it is really getting involved with life skill, with real stuff, you know,
Yeah.
that really can serve a purpose, even if that means, you know, getting them excited. You know, if you have a teenager that really does love animals, how can you serve at maybe, do you have a conservation in your town, a shelter,
Mhm.
whatever it might be that gets them engaging in something? Do you have a kid that wants to work with their hands? Let them build stuff. And if it's something that you don't know how to do, find someone, you know, there's somebody out there somewhere that can help with that.
Right.
And that's where you've got to pray about it.
Me
God
too.
will provide these things that you need. So, you know, if you, and I even think of when we were kids, you were a single mom. We didn't have a lot of these things, but somehow somebody would come along that was really good with this, that the boys could go and spend time with and learn from. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's all a God thing
It is.
to go and do that.
Mhm.
Yeah, the whole socialization thing.
Well, let me speak on the socialization thing really quick. So, my boys are twins, and somewhere along the line when they were younger, they got to the point where they used to laugh and giggle all the time and drive us nuts, and then they were fighting all the time. And I noticed as they got older and older, I mean, it really was pretty ugly. They'd come to blows. They would be mean and spiteful to each other.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I didn't have time to deal with that because, as she said, I have no patience. So when I come home, I mean, it was just cut off at the knees. Everybody was done, and I couldn't deal with it. Well, I'll tell you what, when I realized that my son in the 5th grade, one of the twins, could not read, I said, enough is enough. And so I took them out of school. And then I took the other one out of school because he just couldn't deal with it. And so through junior high or middle school, I took them out and I gave them, I found a group that would work with me, and so I could still get them schooled and so forth and so on.
But
I
still
homes-
work full time.
But still work full time, yes. And I had to because I was a single mom. Anyway, this is what I want to say. When my boys were no longer affected by all of the social issues that even come with that age, because they're no longer kids, they're no longer, but they all want to be adults, but they're really not. So they're either 2 or they're 20. That's just what happens to their attitude and how they feel and how they see themselves during those middle school years. So when I had them stay home, they became each other's friends, best friends. When I came home from work, I would hear, they would have to come tell me about crazy things they did and how silly they were that day.
Yeah.
Because now, by the way, they weren't home alone that time. My mom and dad we were living with them at the time. So they were school bus drivers. So they were there throughout the days. So it's not like I just left them at home. I want to clarify that real quick. But what I'm saying is this. So I agree. Now your 4 kids are, well, of course, one's a baby, but they are each other's best friend. But they also know how to get along with everybody outside. They don't know.
Well, we take them to work with us. I mean, we have
That's true.
our own business, and
Business.
so we've taken them on
And everybody
meetings, we
loves
take them to
them.
setups, and we are constantly comments, constantly being made about how well spoken they are, how polite they are, how
Mhm.
professional they are, and so in us just instead of us separating adult things that have to be done and then
Right.
kid stuff that has to be done, it's all one, and we do everything together.
Mhm.
That my kids now have professional skills
Mhm.
and they know how to behave professionally and different things just because we include everything together, as opposed to, well, kids go over there and they do that because that's a kid thing while all us adults do the adult things.
Right.
And then they'll just magically know how to do it when a high school diploma shows up.
Yeah.
No, like
Exactly.
merge it into one. And everything, whenever we've noticed problems going on in the home with attitudes and stuff, once we've realized that answer needs to be, hey, we need to be together more,
Yeah.
it fixes stuff
Right.
versus pushing it and separating it, you know,
That's
so
true.
coming together and being like, okay,
Mhm.
let's do more together.
Right. And I think being a homeschool parent, you're able to really get to the heart of the whole issue, like you were talking about. It really is a hard issue compared to when they're in a room with 60 other kids
Yeah.
or more.
Because
And
then
so-
it's just a discipline issue.
Right. And
But I don't think
here,
that's it. It's
it's
a
not.
heart
It's
issue.
a
There
heart.
are no discipline issues. There's
It's a
heart
heart
issues for parents and children.
Yeah.
It's not just
That's really true.
it's not just that. And I think that once we realize that and focus on that, it makes such a difference. I mean,
Yeah.
but we have to do that as parents too. I think the more that I mean, like when we do writer's tea time each week, or I come and sit and write with the kids too.
I think that's
Daddy will
really
come
important.
and sit. When they
Yes.
have painting or different activities, their nature walk, we all go out and do it.
Right.
Brandon and I are usually over there trying to identify more trees and mushrooms and stuff than the kids are, because we're like, ooh, what's that one? Ooh, what's that one? And the kids are like, Mom and Dad, we got it. Come on.
But
But
they
I
have
wanna
to
learn.
see that. They have to learn by our example. And if we don't enjoy it and we don't participate with them, then that's another thing that's not motivating. And why do it if they're not even into it?
And I think that's the
Unfortunately.
answer that us as parents, we don't want to hear a lot. But if you're having behavioral problems, attitude problems, whatever,
Yeah.
it's because it's a reflection off of what we're doing so often.
Yeah.
Not, you know, like there are sometimes other issues, you know, obviously if you're dealing with autism and dyslexia, good morning, baby. If you're
Yeah.
dealing with other issues, sometimes obviously that plays a part into it. But so often we have to stop and reflect on, how am I behaving? How am I? Yeah, right. We all want to slink
Yeah.
away when it comes to that, because
But
that's not
don't,
what.
but don't, maybe that's the day the Lord's trying to really tell you it's a day off. You
Yeah.
need to step back and do something else. And sometimes it's the Lord really talking to us. And I wish he could do something with my principal and she'd let me say, hey kids, we're going to do something different
Right.
today. We do that sometimes. Teachers do. We say, no matter if someone comes in, we're all reading a book. But some days we even need a break. And we can find ways to do that in the classroom. And you can do that more easily at home. So don't think of it as you don't need to slink away. It's okay. You really need to just say, okay, this is the day. You guys are lucky. The Lord's talking to me, and he says there's no school today. But instead, we're going to go on a nature walk. We're going to go and do something else. And sometimes we just need a break.
Well, and I think it's kind of that scary thing. Like Lily right now is my greatest example, because people keep commenting that apparently she's my mini me and she's just like me. But then I see her do things and I go, oh my gosh, is that seriously me? Is that how I talk? And don't stop shaking your head.
Then let's rephrase this. That's how you might talk to others, but you never talk to your mama that way.
No, my mama was mean. She would beat me. She would say, no. But I think it is, in a sense, though, such a good thing to see that, because we should self-reflect and go, it is my goal every day to live like Christ. So if I am not living like him and treating others like he would have taught them, then I have an issue. Whether it's I'm not treating my coworkers, I'm not
Right.
treating my children, my husband, friends, strangers, whoever the others might be, we have to stop and self-assess that. And none of us are doing that perfectly. None of us are doing as good as we should be doing, because God deserves better than that. And you're not, every day you're failing in some way, because we all are.
Yeah,
That's
a
the
sin.
point of being sinful flesh and living here. We are not living in our perfected bodies, reigning with Christ in the millennial kingdom. Like, that's not where we're at right now.
Not yet.
But I think the moment that we realize that,
Mhm.
and we know that, and that's what makes Christ that much more amazing, that even though that's where I am now, he is still here to help me and guide me, you know, and all of that. And we realize that we need to do better, because not only do our spouse and our children and friends and family deserve our best, God always deserves our best. So every day knowing and stopping ourselves whenever we're seeing these problems come up, stopping and going to God and saying, what do I need to do to make this situation better? Instead of just, my kid's got an attitude. My kid's got, well, it's because they're seeing it from you most likely because that's where they're learning from.
We're talking because this is what we do.
Yeah. This is
that's-
because I'm completely horrible at this.
Well, now, when I get after my students, I'll, we'll be doing something and I'll get frustrated. I usually go check my sugar because I'm a type 1 diabetic. I found that that's usually what the problem is. And you know what, most of the time it is, but there's just times when
We tell her that. We go, Mom, you seem a little surly right now. You should check your sugar.
No, they don't. They say, have you checked your sugar? Have you checked your sugar? Okay, but I probably need to. So sometimes how we feel, just, we have bad days or off days. But it's also another time is if they're not getting it and I'm feeling kind of frustrated, 99.9 of the time, it's because it's the way I'm presenting it. And so I just have to say, I've been in the middle of, I had a teacher in there doing a little observation and they weren't getting it. And I was not saying it correctly. So I said, shut your books and we're going to go to something else. And we did something I knew they loved. So we went to something else and I didn't even get back to it probably for a few days before I went back. But I reread this. Here's another thing too. You want to be a good teacher? You have to do the work with the student.
Yeah.
So if your child's learning about something, and it's not your favorite, it don't matter. It's your child's, and so you got to do it with them.
Yeah.
And you got
That
to
makes a
kind
big
of read it
difference.
beforehand, so you have an idea of where it's headed. Whether it's learning about.
Well, and you know that your kids have
biology or
really learned it if they're explaining to you how to do it.
That's
You're like,
right.
no, Mom, it's like this.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
exactly.
hey, Judy made it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, and like you said, Paul does say that when Paul says, I'm always wanting to do good and somehow I end up
Oh,
always
yes.
doing wrong. Like there is that sinful flesh of us that
I
no
was just
matter
reading
how
that,
hard we
yeah.
try, we are going to mess stuff up. We are going to have a hard time. But
But you know what? That's a great opportunity. Your children
kids need
have
to
to
learn
see
that.
that we mess up. What do we do after we mess up? They have to know what to do with that because we're all going to do it. There's just no way that's going to stop. So when they watch us go through it, like I always talk to my students and I tell them, today's my day. I'm just having a bad day. It's not you, And if they're having a hard day, I let them come to me and say, Miss Joyner, I'm just having a hard day. I just, for whatever reason. And I listen to them and I say, okay, then I have an idea and I can let them do what they need to do to get through that day. You get to do that with your own child, for whatever reason. But we have to show them how to process. And I know I'm not the parent, but I try to help them understand what
these
to
are
do
life
with
skills
their
we
bad
need.
days.
And it's
It
good to
is.
it's good to have and share and to
It is.
show how to do that because I think
We
all
do.
of us probably made it to adulthood not having all of these skills and we've been trying to figure it out since then. So if we can teach that
That's
to our kids
true.
beforehand.
That's true. And we are
they've
blessed
got
because we get to do it with the Word of God.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I won't tell you what I work for. I'll teach you something.
Gotta do it in secret.
No, not good. I'll tell you. It's okay.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much checked everything off.
Okay.
And these things, some things we didn't, but I think we kind of hit in with them, not even realizing it.
I think if I could leave this with something, I'd really like for all the parents that are homeschooling, whether you're a single mom, a whole family, a whole legion of people to count on, or by yourself. It's got to be enjoyable. You can take the word fun out if you want, but it's got to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
And the best part is, now I'm going to tell you real quick, when Heidi first started homeschooling, I thought, oh my gosh, in second grade, this is what he should be doing. Third grade, this is what he should be doing.
Not doing
And then it was like, but yeah, I felt like, and I did. I said, as a teacher on the outside going, oh my gosh, you're so far behind. That's not how it works. They took all the stress out. And Travis, who really has, who's severely dyslexic, we could say severe, and he was finally diagnosed. He is an amazing student. He can process information very deeply. God is going to use him in an amazing way. And it's all because they took the stress out and she gives him a love for learning. And if you get to it, you get to it. If you don't, you don't. It's okay. It really is. So don't think that you have to be doing what everybody else is doing. You got to do what's best for your child. And they are going to learn if you're enjoying it too.
Yeah, it's really hard to be okay with that because everybody is. Well, like you said, because we were, doing the stuff and it's nothing like homeschooling with your public school teacher mom sitting right there next to you. And it's like, we should be checking this and checking
Yeah.
this, and different things. And you will definitely share this. I hope this is when you guys can all go back and, watch the whole thing through. And we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But yeah, I mean, it is when you're looking at the official Virginia Carol, please. See, now these kids are getting,
They're ready to.
these kids are done. When you're looking at the official checkoff list and you're not hitting the perfect things, it is like,
It's overwhelming.
I'm messing up. I'm not doing it right. I'm not doing this. But yeah, to see, and like we told our kids, hey, maybe we're taking a huge gamble. Maybe you guys will be adults and Daddy and I did a horrible job and we ruined everything and we've sent you off into life with absolutely no skills and you will resent us forever. That's the risk we're running, right? But seeing them getting older and seeing so much growth and so many different things, it's like, I think we're going to be okay. I think you guys will still, yes, you'll be able to be productive in this world, but furthermore, you guys spiritually will be going out as disciples for Christ, and that's what matters.
And that's what
I don't care if you work a minimum wage job your whole life. If that's where God is using you to shine the light to others, then there's so much, deeper that's going on.
And God provides all that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming and hanging out. She did not want to do this. You should see my text messages. Wait, what? No. So I am glad we did this. I am so glad you guys got to come and hang out with us. This will stay up so that way you all can continue to check it out and see this. If you have more questions, let us know and we will work on maybe doing this more often. She'll love it. But
It was fun talking
very
about it.
excited. We'll be continuing. We're in our last couple weeks for our 100 Days of Homeschool vlog series. So we will have those still coming out this week. Yes, we will totally get her to do this again. I promise.
Is that Travis?
No, it's not
No,
Travis.
it's not Travis.
So we will do this. Brandon and I have some awesome podcasts coming out this week on topics that are deemed rather touchy, surprise, surprise. But we are talking on those. And then, of course, I plan to do our live again next Saturday. I really like doing these.
Probably to answer all the state.
Yeah, I'm not sure how exactly we'll do them, but I really like having this time of fellowship on Saturday afternoons that we can come together in real time and really share on this. So trying to figure it all out and how exactly we want to do it. The kids really we're enjoying the daily vlogs. But there's like other stuff I want to do too that I can't do when I'm having to I need more hours in my day because I'm like falling behind on a million different things. So we have a lot of stuff that we are working on and some things that, although it's not our 100-day of school vlogs, some other videos that I think are going to share a lot of really cool information that I think you will like just as much as you've liked our 100-day of homeschool series. Hopefully. Or nobody will like it and I'll go back to doing what you like. So one way to find out. But thank you guys seriously for hanging out with us today. We really enjoyed it. My kids are now all going completely amok back here. So I guess I need to go back to being a mom and probably feed everybody too because everybody's starving. Yeah.
Uh-oh, they're starting.
Nan's here, so they want Taco Bell. You guys all have an awesome weekend. We are going to enjoy our Sabbath feast tonight and our time with family, but we will see you guys all later this week. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.